Luke, as I mentioned to you, I was going to review your goal tasks with you each week to go over which ones you got correct and which ones you might need some more support with. So taking a look at the first two problems here, the very first one was a bar graph, and you were asked to identify how many grapes. So you were able to take a look. Let me grab my pen here. You're able to take a look. Here's grapes in your bar graph. Moving on over, you got the answer of 30, which was correct. All right, taking a look at number 2, identifying place value. So millions place value, you correctly identified it as 5. Again, millions place has 6 zeros to the right of it before the decimal. Even if you don't see it, it's there, it's hidden, just unneeded. And then which digits in the thousands place, you were also able to correctly identify that is a 6. A thousands place is the first number to the left of the first comma and has 3 zeros to the right. So great job in the first two here. Okay, taking a look at number 3, I had discussed elapsed time. So Mike started swimming at time A. So here's clock A. He stopped swimming at time B. And it's asking you how long, basically, Mike swam for a total of how many hours and how many minutes. So the first thing that you want to do, and again, I think we were pretty close with this. So hopefully just reviewing it together, we'll kind of see where we went. So you gave me the answer of 3 hours and 20 minutes. So let's break it down and see where we're at. So if I look at clock A, if I'm going to identify the time, usually when you're looking at time, you start with the hour and then we go with the minute. So if I extend my little hand there, that's my hour hand, it's between the 10 and 11. And when we're telling time, if you're always kind of looking backwards, right? If it's between 10 and 11, it is still 10 o'clock. We are not quite till 11 o'clock. So we've got 10 o'clock there. Ooh. And then when we're identifying minutes, again, it looked like you were pretty solid with minutes. We count from five intervals of 5 here. So we have 5, 10, 15, 20. And again, it looked like that you were pretty solid with the, sorry, my pen's a little scratchy there. It looked like you were pretty solid in identifying minutes from what I could tell. Then if I'm looking at clock B, again, same sort of thing. I want to look at the clock and identify the time. So I'm starting with the hours. And again, I'm just kind of extending that line so you can see what I'm talking about. It is not quite to the 1. So we cannot say it's 1 o'clock. I'm thinking maybe that's where your error was. It's between 12 and 1. And yes, it is closer to 1, but we're not quite at 1 o'clock yet. It could be 12:55. And as you know, it's not 1 o'clock yet, right? It's close, but it's not quite. So it's got to be directly on the 1 or past it in order for it to be 1 o'clock. So hour-wise, we're still looking at 12 o'clock. Then looking at minutes, again, this seemed to be more of a strong suit for you. If we start at 12, count by intervals of 5, clear over to that 8 hand, you were able to identify, it seemed like 40 minutes. So looking at clock A, 10:20. Looking at clock B, we've got 12:40. So now that we have the times identified, let's take a look at your answer and see what it should be. Again, you were close. So looking at how many hours has passed. So I'm just looking at my hours. I go from 10 to 12. You told me it was 3 hours. Hopefully you can see your error there. It should not be 3 hours. It's actually only 2 there, Luke. From 10 to 12 is an increase of 2. Then again, we're going to look at our minutes. We're going from 20 to 40. And again, if we look at your answer here, you're correct in the minute zone, right? From 20 to 40 is an additional 20 minutes. So your real answer, the correct answer should have been 2 hours and 20 minutes. Again, I couldn't really tell where you went south on this problem. It looked to me that maybe you assumed that this is a 140. That was my best guess in looking at your answer. That's sometimes where students go. So again, hopefully this helped clear that up. Okay, taking a look at number 4, you got it correct. So 2 times what number gives you 18? Gave me the answer of 9, which is correct. Let's take a look at number 5. Number 5, you actually had your symbols backwards. You had a less than sign for the first one and a greater than sign for the second one. And again, just to kind of quickly review with you, we did talk about this early in the year. I still kind of think of that little Pac-Man or the alligator hand, or however you learned it in elementary school, but it eats the bigger number, right? So you want to make sure that your sign, first of all, is opening up towards the larger value. My guess is that you knew that, okay? Because I think I remembered from when you were in class, you understood the less than, greater than signs. However, I feel you might have got tripped up by saying, hey, 8's the largest number I see. That must be larger. So I'm going to put the less than sign. I'm going to eat the 8. Oh, and 6 is bigger than 3, so I'm going to put it this way. Well, if you remember back to the beginning of the school year, we did talk about when we see fractions, it's easy to think like they're whole numbers, like, oh, 8's the biggest number I see. But again, fractions are a little bit more less comfortable. We don't really know them quite as well. So when we're comparing fractions, your method would be to put them into numbers, put in, like, I guess, convert them into decimals, okay? Because we do understand decimals. They're along the integer, numbers that we're more familiar with. Fractions, not so much. So if you remember, a fraction is simply division. We had talked about, if you think about a division sign as a horizontal line and a dot above and a dot below, I always kind of think of those dots as placeholders for numbers. So 5 divided by 6 is the operation of a fraction. So if we take 5 and we divide it by 6, simple operation there, we get 0.83. And I'm going to go ahead and do my division on the other side, 1 divided by 8. And we find our answer is 0.125. Now again, you don't have to write down all the decimals, because really when you're comparing decimals, I did encourage you, if you could relate to it like money, I think that's the easiest thing to do. 0.83 is 83 cents, 0.12 is 12 cents. Which one's bigger? Hopefully you can see now, Luke, hey, 83 cents is bigger. So your symbol should eat 5/6. Again, kind of going back to my scratch work here, you might have saw my calculator was 0.83333333. I don't need all of that because when I'm comparing, if I didn't think of it as money, you go down the line, place value by place value and compare. So I would say, all right, the first number I see after my decimal is an 8. The first number I see after my decimal is 1. Clearly different. I don't need to go any farther beyond to be able to tell 8's bigger than 1. And again, that 5/6 would be my larger value. Okay, so the second fraction here, comparison. So 1 divided by 6, again, your method should be to get it down to a decimal and then compare those. So 0.16 here on the left. If I take a look at 1/3, again, grab a calculator, do your division, and we get 0.33. So looking at those decimals, and I'm sorry, my writing's here a little scratchy. Again, we can compare place value by place value. 3 is bigger than 1. So do you see how, again, your symbol should go the other way? Or again, you can think of it like money. 33 cents is bigger than 16 cents. So whatever works for you, Luke. I think you might have just gotten tripped up by the bigger number that you saw and ignored that they were fractions. So again, your method is to convert them to fractions and then compare. Okay, number 6 was another elapsed time. So we've got Victor started driving to the airport. His watch showed the time in figure A. And then when he reached the airport, his watch looked like this in figure B. So how long did it take him to get to the airport? What was his total time taken by Victor to reach the airport? So again, you should take a look at both watches and identify the time. So if I'm looking at watch A, and again, I'm actually going to try to enlarge this a little bit here so you can kind of see it better. If I drew this line for my shorter hand, which is representing my hour, and I pulled it out, you have to ask yourself, is it 7 o'clock or is it 8 o'clock yet? Remember, when we're looking at time, if we're not on the number or past it, it's still the hour before. So this would actually be 7 o'clock. Looking at minutes, again, seem to be your strong suit. Counting by intervals of 5. When we reach that 8, it is 40. So watch A tells you a time of 7 o'clock, or I'm sorry, 7:40 for the clock. So looking at B, again, if I'm looking at identifying the time, if I extend my hour, and I would start with my hour, it's between 9 and 10, so it is still 9 o'clock. We're not quite to 10 o'clock yet. And then looking at my minutes again, it seemed like you were pretty solid with this, counting by intervals of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and so forth. If I get up to 10, it is 9:50 when you look at his watch for B. So the total time, again, as far as hours, we're going from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So that would be 2 hours, 7, 8, 9. So 2 hours. How many minutes? 40 to 50. So we're looking at a difference of 10 minutes. So again, super close. You did another, I think your answer was 3 hours and 10 minutes. So I'm thinking that you possibly mistook one of the hours and thought there was an extra hour in there. So just be careful when you're looking at the hours. If it's between two numbers, it is the smaller number because you're not quite to the next hour. Number 7, I feel like you know what you're doing. I think it was just a silly error. I could be wrong, but I think this was a type of problem that you in the past seemed to be pretty confident with. So you were writing the number in the blank. So reading this number, you had 6 million. You absolutely had a 6. Actually, this was what your answer was. Let me go ahead and write it down for you, and you can kind of see where, hopefully, you went flat. Went short here. All right, so we had 6 million. There we are. 6 million. Nice job. Oh, sorry, I forgot to put your commas in there. And you clearly know where the millions place is. Then if we look at the next section here, 326,000. 326,000. You see your error? I think it was just a typo. I think you know that that would be a 3. But just to point that out, that's where you'd went south on this last problem. The last part, 455, you nailed it, 455. So again, I think number 7 was just maybe a typo, but just be careful when you're looking through. It never hurts to go back through your work. Okay, Luke, so you've got for for this week's goal task, you're going to have 7 problems again. They're going to be super similar to this. So you're going to still have some elapsed time. So hopefully you learned something from this. You look at details a little bit more. You convert those fractions to decimals, and I'm hoping to see that score go up. So please reach out if you need any more help, or if some of this didn't make sense to you, or if you need anything in general. We've made it through fully remote week 1, so take care and good luck.